Hey, you.
And it happened that the poor man died and was carried off by the angels into the vale of Abraham. But the rich man also died and was entombed. And lifting up his eyes in Hades, being in torment, he sees Abraham far off and Lazarus in his vales. Luke 16:22 to 23. Luke also wrote the book of Acts. He contributed a significant portion of material to the New Testament. He also went by the name Lucius. Luke is a modernized version of that name, which he is referred to in Paul's letters. Lucius is known for being from Cyrene originally, which is a city that is located in northern Africa, where we find Libya today. The North African black Christians were in high number, and this might come as a surprise. We're told that Luke left his hometown to prophesy and teach and practice medicine in Antioch. Antioch, if we think of anti as other or against or backwards or opposite of, and ak as the Islamic term for brother, then we have Luke going to Antioch. That is Lucius of Cyrene, a African black man and Christian, a close friend to Paul, and he's working in Antioch. That's a symbol, a parable, a code, a brother from another tribe. We are in Abraham's bosom, I have suggested. That is Hades, the underworld, or Sheol. The Greek word kalpis means bosom. It can also mean womb, or other things like pocket, fold, hidden place, inward parts, bay, vale, or valley. This syncs with the Valley of Death, or Sheol, symbolism in the hugely popular Psalm 23, and it was Yeshua, not Moses, who crossed the Jordan, another 23 reference, and brought the Jews to the Promised Land. His name is curiously translated today as the westernized Joshua in the Old Testament, and that is further obfuscating Jesus' appearance in the Old Testament. He's right there in the 6th book. Jesus, or Yeshua as the Hebrews would call him, and Sophia appear in the Old Testament, and again in the Jewish Apocrypha of intertestamental period. That's the period in between the Old and New Testament works. Jesus, son of Sirach, and the Sophia of Solomon are two of such works, and those were written by Jews in Greek before the New Testament. And modern translations obfuscate the fact that Christ and Sophia were alive and well and present in the Jewish scripture and mythology before they appeared in the flesh. So the Word appeared, and then the flesh appeared, and then the story was shattered or broken and fell apart, and now we're putting it back together again. Abraham's bosom is a curious translation, and we need to unpack that if we're going to develop a deeper understanding here. Let's observe this illustration of a valley, a cross-section that's translated as bosom as well from the Greek. That looks like a fertile crescent, a vulva. That's the birth canal in between the two mountains. That's also the breasts. So we have a couple different references to female anatomy there. The bosom is also a valley. So the actual landscape of Earth is referenced as being not unlike the body of a woman. And so things are planted into the earth and then it grows fruit and seed, but this is also a spiritual pattern. We have Moses up on the mountain for 40 days. That's a quarantina, which means 40 days. Noah goes in the ark for 40 days and 40 nights. He worked night and day on that story. And Jesus went into the desert of the real for 40 days to be tempted by the tempter, the prosecutor, the liar, the adversary, the guy that keeps changing his name, Satan. Anyway, we encounter Satan here, and we encounter Christ, or the Holy Spirit, in this realm that we're in. And I'm suggesting that's the mandorla, or the cleavage, that in-between world, in between the two mountains. And the mountains will fall, but the Sheol is forever. So interesting patterns emerge. We're going to continue to unpack that. Don't worry if you're a little confused, but it will help to get familiar with previous Gnostic Sunday School videos if you haven't. This is Gnostic Sunday School number 9, our story so far. Enough of these mythologies are bearing similar fruit so that you can see the apple tree, and we are going to unpack those patterns here.
You know what the Ukraine is? It's a sitting duck. A road apple, Newman. The Ukraine is weak. It's feeble. I think it's time to put the hurt on the Ukraine.
I come from Ukraine. You not say Ukraine weak?
Yeah, well, we're playing a game here, pal.
Absolutely obscure and in fact made up. Russia's biggest bank. Military intelligence disinformation campaign.
We've got a central bank cooperating with a world power government to create a massive disinformation campaign, including psyops using artificial intelligence, deep fake social media accounts that disrupt democratic elections. And then we also have reports of fake newspapers and media reports played out as reality across entire nations. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's actually the subject of conversation for the past 2 years now, running on channels like MSNBC. That's left-leaning Rachel Maddow herself talking about government disinformation campaigns, gaslighting the public. Who's to say, after 10 years ago, with the repeal of the Smith-Mundt Act, that this isn't happening in the United States? Oh, I gotta go.
See, this is why I didn't want to give this talk, because I knew that we'd have this conversation, and now it's on the record. All right, let me take a step back, and we have to deal with it. Let me take a step back and a deep breath, because this is a very painful thing to talk about. So, all over the world, we know, it's well established, the State Department and intelligence agencies engage in theater, and it's what they do, it's spycraft, to create spectacles and events that people may not realize are spectacles and events, but that, well, like the overthrow of Mossadegh in the 50s in Iran. They'll funnel money to protesters, they'll, fly people in to infiltrate protesters, they'll create fake newspapers, and so on. So we know that this happens in countries around the world. I believe that a law has been passed in the United States, I think it's part of the Defense Authorization Act, I need to confirm this, that, now makes it legal to propagandize American citizens. Do we know about that? Yeah, it's true. And is it in the NDAA or is it in something else? Do we know? It's a separate bill. It's a separate bill, and it's been passed. It's now law? Do we know what the 2 years ago. Do we know what the name of it is?
I don't remember, but I reported on it.
Oh, thank you. Will you send me the link?
Yeah.
Thank you. So what this means is, and as a journalist, to say these words, I can't tell you with what a heavy heart I say them, but we've entered an era in which it is not crazy to assess news events to see if they're real or not real, and in the United States as well as overseas.
Just so we're clear, liberal feminists were warning us of fake news in 2014, and a couple of years ago, Donald Trump was urging us to get the vaccine, while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, expressed skepticism.
I'm suggesting politics is fake.
Let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us.
If and when the vaccine comes, and it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done. When we finally do, God willing, get a vaccine, who's going to take the shot? Who's going to take the shot? You're going to be the first one to say, sign me up. They now say it's okay.
Kayfabe? Kayfabe, the system of stratified lies that professional wrestling is undergirded by. I wrote this essay anticipating that professional wrestling was going to turn out to be incredibly important. And in fact, I thought it was going to determine the presidency.
I want you to consider this idea behind some of my recent work with kayfabrication and scripted reality as a type of worked shoot world in which we live in, and co-create or co-write a choose-your-own-adventure novel. And we take on patterns from previous mythologies. You may begin to recognize this in your own life.
So when you have a situation where the news media wants to promote somebody like Paul Krugman, they don't call him controversial Professor Paul Krugman. They call him New York Times columnist or Nobel laureate Paul Krugman.
If we discovered that space aliens were planning to attack, and we needed a massive buildup to counter the space alien threat, and really inflation and budget deficits took secondary place to that, this slump would be over in 18 months. And then if we discovered, whoops, we made a mistake, there aren't actually any space
So we need
aliens,
Orson
we'd be
Welles,
a better,
is what you're saying.
No, there was a Twilight Zone episode like this in which scientists fake an alien threat in order to achieve world peace. Well, this time we don't need it. We need it in order to get some fiscal stimulus.
They call him New York Times columnist or Nobel laureate Paul Krugman. But if it's Jordan Peterson and Jordan hasn't signed up for some sort of consensus position,
embracing the darkness,
he has to be controversial Professor Jordan Peterson. Now, it's true that he's a controversial professor, but that's actually the gated institutional narrative's special language for telling the audience who the good guys and the bad guys are. And if you go back to professional wrestling, this would be called heels and baby faces, or faces. And so the idea is that Paul Krugman would be a face and Jordan Peterson would be a heel, but instead of being open about the fact that wrestling is a simulated performance sport, in the journalistic endeavor, we pretend that journalism is actually a search for truth, which I find hysterically funny.
To do with a 95-year-old leukemia patient who was traveling from Florida to Michigan, and she had to wear an adult diaper. Now, while she was going through security, the TSA pulled her aside and thought it was a little strange that she was wearing a diaper. They said that it was both firm and wet, so they took her to a private room.
And you've described this as kayfabe in the past. So
Right.
Can you explain what that is to people who've maybe not heard that term?
Sure. I think one of the problems is that we don't have good language for dealing with multi-layered deception. And the two places that I thought had pretty good language were the intelligence community and professional wrestling. So professional wrestling was the easier, it's hard to get spooks to give up their secrets. So what I did is I started to look into professional wrestling and what are all of the terms that they have to maintain to keep track what the actual storylines are, what the simulated storyline. Sometimes you have a simulated storyline that apparently breaks into actual reality, like you're breaking the fourth wall, but it's actually a controlled structure where you're still in a fake story. So they call things that are fake works, and they call things that are real shoots. So a worked shoot is actually something that is set inside of a fake storyline, is apparently real and breaks the fourth wall, but is in fact fake. So you're talking about tertiary and eventually quaternary levels of deception. I don't think the human mind can do much more than 4 layers of lying. But kayfabe is the organized structure of lies that undergirds professional wrestling and has kept it as a simulated sport for about a century. All sorts of human activity veer between utter terror and boredom. And why is that? Well, because if something is actually an unbounded negative potential experience, people are very hesitant to engage. So if 2 wrestlers can really do damage to each other, they're going to circle each other for a very long time before engaging because they don't want to risk anything that they don't have to. So you could have bouts that would go on for 4 or 5 hours and basically nothing happened. Well, this is true in all sorts of endeavors. People in the know in finance don't really want to risk their money. So they come up with all sorts of elaborate ways to make sure that they're going to be okay no matter what happens. In politics, the same is true. Nobody wants to simply find that they're out of a job because they lost an election. So there's an elaborate revolving door between politically related occupations like punditry or lobbying and actually being a representative. So you have all sorts of fakery that is intended rather to make stable careers for the participants and to present an engaging and regular product for those in the audience. And so I believe that in some sense what you're seeing is what I call K-fabrication, where real activities that are dangerous and or boring tend to get sanitized by the participants so that they can present an as-if product to those outside of the structure and not themselves get hurt and continue to make money off of it. And I think that that's what happened in professional wrestling. There's a real competition for airtime, for fame, but there's a fake competition, which is a scripted series of pretend bouts where the decisions are actually known in advance. And that's very similar to what I see happening in war, in finance.
3 people working as one with one goal in mind, to defeat, or should I say demolish, the Twin Towers.
In media and particularly journalism.
Blew me away because the Today Show, man, that's a hot show in the morning, you know, for me. And Matt Lauer, man, I mean,
we love Matt Lauer.
He brings the female out in me because that Matt Lauer, you know, Matt Lauer is hot. Matt Lauer is hot. You know,
and tear down the Twin Towers.
Yeah. Are you sure you know where the impound yard is?
Oh, stop stalling. Come on.
I can't think. There's all this noise.
Or is it because I've built a stronghold around Greenland? I've driven you out of Western Europe? And I've left you teetering on the brink of complete annihilation.
I'm not beaten yet. I still have armies in the Ukraine.
The Ukraine. You know what the Ukraine is? It's a sitting duck. A road apple, Newman. The Ukraine is weak. It's feeble. I think it's time to put the hurt on the Ukraine.
I come from Ukraine. You not say Ukraine weak?
Yeah, well, we're playing a game here, pal.
Ukraine is came to you? How about I take your little bonus?
Absolutely obscure and in fact made up. Russia's biggest bank, military intelligence disinformation campaign to Russia, major Russian bank, Russia's decrepit giant natural gas company. Putin had with Russian business leaders today. Russia invaded Ukraine, the Russian ruble. Putin to Russia, Russian businesses and Russian finance, the Russian economy. In Moscow, Putin meeting today sanctioned Russia's major Russian to Russia. President Putin sanctions were all coordinated with other sanctions to Russia. Russia has been working to create for Russia to be cut out of to Russia its own sort of parallel system, global trade and finance altogether. Russian oligarchs against Iran could sanction President Putin himself to Russia. Best new thing in the world, Vladimir Putin's government. Russia. Little evidence of such activities appears to exist. And that was a made-up thing. Putin's government military intelligence disinformation campaign that Vladimir Putin was pushing as part of an information warfare offensive against a country that Russia wanted in its orbit.
Fabulous.
Absolutely obscure and in fact made up. Us, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and Russia.
What is it? What is it, Paul?
Looks like an airplane without wings.
We are scattering our puzzle pieces across the table. Bear with me.
It was important to go downstairs and get outside, which I did. And as we came around the corner, we could see the fire and the smoke. There were pieces of the aircraft spread across the grassy area outside the building.
If it was that Malaysia Airlines plane, they would have to hide it.
Take a look at this wreckage. See how there's no plane parts on the ground there? What does that look like?
A missile.
Is the disclosure 20 years late?
Next month, Congress is expecting a report from the Director of National Intelligence and other agencies on UFOs or UAPs. Now, that's the government term for them. It stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Why? Well, a retired U.S. Navy pilot came forward to say he and his crew witnessed an unidentified flying object on the coast of the Atlantic several times. And he's not the only one. Joining us now, someone who has personally witnessed sightings, retired Navy Chief Master at Arms Sean Cahill, joined by Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. Thank you both. Appreciate you for joining me.
Good evening, Chris.
Pleasure, thank you.
All right, so let's dispense with the obvious here. Chris, people are going to eye roll and say, boy, was Cuomo light on what to talk about tonight. Why is this worth discussion?
Because we have recurring violations of U.S. airspace by unidentified vehicles that are very capable, in some cases more capable than anything in our own inventory. This has been going on for years. The truth is just emerging. We've had a massive intelligence failure, and we now have a threat, an unknown threat that we need to figure out.
So we've got the sex offender Cuomo there stuck in between, in the middle, in purgatory, between the lawyer and the master at arms. Interesting symbolism there. Kind of looks like he's in a tight spot in purgatory. Anyway, we've got a bad spirit. Tic Tacs don't address bad breath. It's more like a baby rattle distraction from the spirit of the age.
Is this the match you wanted all along, or are you going to continue your terrorist attacks on the mega powers and the defenseless Elizabeth? What do you want?
9/11 written 9-11 looks like 9-11, the answer of which is -2, and -2 implies 2 fewer, as in the towers are gone. -2. The 2 towers also look like an 11 or a Roman numeral 2. So 9/11, 2 fewer. Sept means 7, Oct means 8. The original position of those months, September 11th, means 7/11. That's the World Trade Center Building 7 and the 2 towers pictographically represented 7/11, That's a quick stop. That's the 3 towers. German 9 means none, or no, so 9/11 in German is no 2 towers, no 11, no 2 towers. In the upcoming Gnostic Sunday School, I will unpack more of that specific biblical symbolism that connects that event on September 11th to Jewish and Christian scripture. I want to take a look more at pop culture, and we see an overlap between the Easter Bunny and pop culture Easter symbolism and the fertility, as well as the idea of these Easter egg kind of white pill tic-tac things popping up in the background of some Easter artwork from the Eastern Orthodox Church. We have the Y2K event that was prophesized, and then the 2012. These seem to be kind of missing the mark, but pointing towards symbolism that could have pointed towards, I don't know, 2021 or 2001, maybe the events of 9/11. We've got UFOs here that looks like a larvae from the right angle. Christ appears to show up in an Easter egg that looks like it's a triangulated projected hologram. Everybody's got the golden seal around their head, and that means they don't have the consciousness to get the joke. The Christ consciousness is a joke. That means you get the Josh. Josh means to joke. And to break that golden seal is to take the piss, as they say in the UK, to get the joke. So I've talked about Easter eggs and the one event and many holidays before. How do the overlays predict an event like this?
Well, welcome to Beyond Belief. Jason James Bickford with us, an esoteric researcher, visual artist, and independent media producer. Jason, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, George.
You produced a clip and some examples of precognitive artwork.
I'm going to highlight some precognition in predictive art using what I call the overlays method. We'll begin with Goya's 1826 painting Milkmaid of Bordeaux. I duplicate the image, mirror it, and reduce the opacity, and immediately I see something like a serpent or Naga spirit. As I slide this image across its mirror, there is the DC Comics character Swamp Thing, 150 years before he was created, and at the center of his face is fully articulated Masonic iconography. There's loads of other creatures here. This is just a sampling. We see a bird, something like a swallow or a heron there. As I rotate the image and layer it on top of itself, I see a number of creatures. Here's a winged birdman type creature with arms and legs, a fully articulated face. While I was creating that Swamp Thing image, I noticed when I look at it from a right angle, there's something like a beast with a large mouth chomping down there. It's worth pointing out here that Swamp Thing seems to have amputated arms and is leaking water out of his humerus bones. So we're draining the Swamp Thing. There's layers of predictive iconography and symbolism in there. That's just a taste. Let's take a look at the infamous Christ on the cross etching from Dürer. In 1505, he created this iconic image. I reduce the opacity of a duplicate, mirror it, slide it across itself, and we see that date is now 2021. And there is a bit of a devil, a demon, maybe an antichrist. The opposite of Christ would be the antichrist. So we have an antichrist as well as a kind of pagan Pan, a rabbit, and, well, Christ begins to look a bit like a clown. I'm thinking of Joaquin Phoenix playing Christ and Mary Magdalene, and then 6 months later playing the Joker. The 1505 looks like ISOS, possibly. And in the mirror, of course, that's 2021. So possibly we're looking at symbolism that's precognitive, that we're in the age or spirit of the Antichrist. Christ said to spread the good news and love one another. And here we are, more polarized and hateful than ever at the moment. There's also some imagery that looks like Smokey the Bear, as well as some other cartoon characters. And I'm reminded of the forest fires and the wildfires across the West Coast in the U.S. There's other etchings of Christ by Dürer that also have some teddy bear and bear symbolism, as well as some other Masonic iconography. I found it interesting when we invert Christ and then mirror this signature of Dürer. He uses his initials here. We get a little billy goat face there. It's almost like a little bit of a tell. If you see that, then you know you're onto something. So here we are in the age of the Antichrist, polarized, hateful, and this seems to be a bit of a co-created warning.
That's dramatic. Dramatic.
So we've got Tic Tac UAPs and the bad breath of the age mapping onto 500-year-old art codes that I just code deciphered in 2017. Let's take a look at the creator or architect as Dr. Schrodinger peeking inside his 4D box to see what condition his cat is in. Left that cat out in the desert and he wanted to find out if he's house trained or not. So how's my cat doing? The Iron Lion of Zion in the desert of the real. He left some radioactive plutonium out there. We'll get into that symbolism. I'm not that crazy. This makes sense eventually.
You, my fine friend, you're a victim of disorganized thinking. You are under the unfortunate delusion that simply because you run away from danger, you have no courage.
So in that paradox of Schrodinger's box, Schrodinger places a cat inside a sealed box. There's some poison in a sealed container. If the cat breaks the container open, or the container has a 50-50 chance of breaking open and poisoning the cat, we don't know if the cat is dead until we open the box, or it starts to stink. Who knows? So this is a comment about Lazarus and Schrodinger's box and uranium-235, radioactivity in the desert. No, seriously, in Luke 10, Jesus takes disciples, 2 by 35, 70 of them, and sends them in all directions into the desert, and that is a symbol of opening Pandora's box, or Schrodinger's box, the cube, which is also the tesseract, and also the cross folded up.
We might consider Schrodinger's cat.
Schrodinger. Is that the woman in 2A?
No, that's Mrs. Grossinger. And she doesn't have a cat. She has a Mexican hairless, annoying little animal. Yip, yip, yip.
Sheldon!
In the rather illuminated and inspired work of William Blake, which included poetry and prints, we have a copper plate print here colored by Blake of Urizen, his concept of the demiurge or architect of the physical world. And when I duplicate that image and mirror it and introduce it to a mirrored opacity and rotate that, I get a number of lion images whose face is in the sun. And then I also see something that looks a little bit more like an Asian design. As I rotate these things around, I see other creatures like dolphins, and there's the hairless cat.
Sheldon!
It's interesting, there's a microwave over the shoulder of Sheldon. What's inside that box? We also have a lamb. We have some disturbing imagery, as well as some beautiful imagery of animals and sunshine and things like that. So there's a world of possibilities within the overlays on that particular image, and it does look like Urizen is reaching down with that compass right angle of his hand that reminds me of the architect and engineer symbolism of the Freemasons. Here we have John Nash working with the CIA. You can see the Tesseract cube is unfolded in the screen there. They have some transparencies and glass planes and overlays. So it seems like symbolically, if we turn the sound off, it looks like John Nash is helping the CIA with some overlays and something about the fourth dimensional Tesseract box and what happens when Schrodinger opens those doors there and we peek inside the box, or break the atom, or crack the firmament and create another Milky Way. So look at that white table. That reminds me of the overlays and the mirroring. And then on the wall itself behind Nash, we see the Tesseract cube.
I had to have a peek. It's unbelievable. It's brain-melting, poetic. It is the Communist Manifesto of cool ideas.
And therefore, what?
I'm quitting the game.
Quitting? Why?
Wait, for good? For the foreseeable future. After reading the book, Dungeons and Dragons just seems like a bunch of people, taking on imaginary roles.
That's what it is.
Yeah, but the book, it makes life seem more interesting than D&D. Oh, whoa, no. You can't quit.
We see patterns emerging in a world filled with, let's say, a bad spirit. We have the Tic Tac UFO showing up in the sky. And it reminds me of the flying pig from Kids in the Hall, who entertains people waiting in line. The suspense is killing me. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Teen girls are seeking help for a mysterious illness. The mystery illness. Tick-tock, tick-tock. It's killing me. What could possibly be going on? Could it have something to do with any of the stuff I've been talking about for a decade now that gets wiped off the internet, that predicts the future and is kind of spot on? But I don't want to toot my own horn here too much. But this is the cat's meow right here. A unified code theory perspective on the spirit of the age and the cultural climate change, from tapping the fossil fuel of the reptile brain and bringing up the 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons of the, well, mark of the beast, or the, let's say, fossil fuel, the ill phos fuel, the bad light, the bad spirit. We have the ruach and the pneuma and the breath and the spirit, all embedded in that collective etymology that maps onto the evolution of consciousness. And, well, it's been almost 21 years since 9/11. We're almost old enough for the spirit of the age. And let's be honest, the Tic Tacs suck. They're not going to solve the bad breath. They're just a baby rattle that is a distraction while we have the adult conversation over here in my shadow banned corner of the universe. It seems like with the polarization and the insane violent behavior and the media shenanigans and gaslighting, everybody is suffering from a similar delusion that maps onto that bad spirit of the age. And who farted is another joke embedded here, the bad or broken spirit. I broke your code, they broke my spirit. Who farted? Get over it.
November 14th, 2004. It's a clear blue sky. There's no wind. And you see this Tic Tac. It's just this white object that's randomly moving around.
The Egyptians have a goddess of the firmament called Nut or Nuit. And in a crude, puerile, dick and fart joke world, which we live in, and that should be obvious, we want to score with a girl by busting a nut. And that is also embedded in the language of sinning in Greek and in Hebrew. To sin is to miss the mark of a target in archery or spear throwing. We have an apocalypse now happening, and we think of apocalypse as, I don't know, the end of the world, devastation, but apocalypse means unveiling or revelation. So the book of Revelations is a book that was originally known as the Book of the Apocalypse. And the revelation is the apocalypse isn't so bad. It's a little bit of a psychedelic fever dream, but people are misunderstanding something that is lost in translation. And I will go into more of the symbolism of Revelations, but I'm already writing a book on the cosmos embedded within stable carbon and the loads of Jewish and Christian symbolism embedded there. So we have white pill, tic-tac, dick planes. Someone has a bad spirit and they're trying to bust a nut, but they can't break on through to the other side because they're using tic-tacs to cover up their bad breath, and that's not going to cut it. Conspiracy theorists and skeptics will tell you not to trust the military or the mainstream media. These are the two sources of the UFO phenomenon paradigm, which was handed off to Hollywood and has become something of a subject for psychological priming. And we now have a little white skeet after someone busts a nut through the firmament and is entering the Fertile Crescent to plant some seeds. We're being primed for something epic.
I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet. outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together.
If I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
If I was the president...
It was unlikely that I was going to be president.
The moment I was inaugurated, my hand would just, it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I'd go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do.
The
aliens won't let it happen. You reveal all their secrets. They exercise strict control over us.
Now, you know...
They exercise strict control over us.
Now, you know, there are a lot of people that are going to examine your facial expressions here, every twitch, everything, and say, and of course, so did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
We had your husband, President Clinton, on the show. He said, I asked him about UFOs and Area 51, and if he looked in, because if I was president, that's the first thing I do. I go right into those files and see what was going on.
Right.
And he said that he did do that.
Yes.
And that he didn't find anything.
Well, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah, why not?
Right? And you know, there's a new name. It's unexplained aerial phenomenon.
Unexplained aerial phenomenon,
Yep,
really?
Yep, UAP. That's the latest nomenclature.
I like the old one. I like UFO. I don't know why.
Well, I think we can use them interchangeably, but I would like us to go into those files and hopefully make as much of that public as possible. If there's nothing there, let's tell people there's nothing there.
What if there is something there?
Well, if there is something there, unless it's a threat to national security, I think we ought to share it with the public.
Well, what if everybody's all hopped up on medical marijuana and everybody gets paranoid? I would love it.
That's why I want more research.
If you share it with me, I'll decide what is the best course of action. I really have my ear to the ground.
Well, I'm more than happy to do that.
We have to take a quick break. But when we come back, I hope you will indulge me in something, because I want to ask you about your access to the files on the UFOs. Okay? President Clinton is here with us. We'll be right back. President Bill Clinton is here with us. So if I was president, and I won't be, let's be honest, the first thing I would do after putting my hand on that Bible and taking that oath to serve the country is I wouldn't even probably finish the oath. I would run to the White House. I demand to see all the classified files on the UFOs. Because I want to know. I'd want to know what has been going on. Did you do that?
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, we had, I think it was at the beginning of my second term, we had the anniversary of Roswell.
You waited that long?
I did.
Wow.
Well, I didn't. And then there's also Area 51. You remember there was a great sci-fi movie where there was an alien kept deep under the ground in Area 51? Well, first I had people go look at the records on Area 51 to make sure there was no alien down there. And people thought that because everybody who works there has to stop about an hour away and put on special clothing and then drive in and out. And that's because a lot of our stealth technology is made there. We know that now, but there are no aliens there. So then when the Roswell thing came up, I knew we'd get, gazillions of letters. So I had all the Roswell papers reviewed, everything. Well, I think, look, what do we know? We know now we live in an ever-expanding universe. We know that there are billions of stars and planets literally out there, and the universe is getting bigger. We know from our fancy telescopes that just in the last 2 years, more than 20 planets have been identified outside our solar system that seem to be far enough away from their suns and dense enough that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that we're alone.
Oh, you're trying to give me a hint that there are aliens.
No, I'm trying to tell you I don't know, but if we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day.
Yeah, right.
That it's a conflict. Maybe the only way to unite this incredibly divided world of ours. They're out there. We better think of how all the differences among people on Earth would seem small if we felt threatened by a space invader. That's the whole theory of independence.
You're right. You're right.
Everybody gets together and makes nice and,
When the iPhone 4S was the emergent technology, this short film was released, Idiots or Idiots, making fun of the pop culture consumerism and planned obsolescence loop that we're stuck in. So we have a bit of an EMP blast or a lollipop pop culture explosion shutting down people's access to the internet. Interestingly enough, these iPhone 4s have a unique band around the edge that wasn't used on other iPhone designs later, but it is used on the iPad Air 4, that just came out. So here we are in 2022. If you look at the meter on the chest of this big boss robot causing havoc here and shutting down people's internet, his meter on his chest seems to read 2.1 or 2.2, so we're in between 2.1 or 21 and 22 in this animated video's precognitive symbolism. And we have the little red devils repeating their loops, the blockheads going over and over again. Interestingly enough, there is a sample or loop-based musician in hip-hop known as Blockhead, and he works with someone named Aesop Rock. So there we have looping fables and symbols, timeless, coming from scripture all the way up to Hollywood and everything in between, pointing to an event that I've been talking about for a number of years that actually happened, and somehow in an upside down world that caused me to see a drop in my subscription. Crazy.
Who's gonna take the shot? Who's gonna take the shot?
A number of esoteric strains of thought, as well as the words of Christ, both in the New Testament scriptures as well as the apocryphal Gnostic writings, suggests there is a cyclical nature of time, and we are told we will see the days of Noah when the revelation or apocalypse, the unveiling, happens. And the unveiling will show us that at the end we find the beginning. And we also have an unveiling as to the free will to decide our own fate. And we can also co-create history in the future by understanding in the present moment. So there is a constant co-creative present moment. And when we co-create and decide what the present moment is, we co-create with Christ or the Holy Spirit, or Sophia, as in Luke 10, the light and the way, which is the photon and the potential path, which is not decided until observation. So opening Schrodinger's box is God peeking in on your life and then helping you co-create and decide what exactly it is you're going to do or what path you're going to be on. And if you are radioactive too much, you are a radical, free-floating Jew in the desert, you are going to need to get a visit and a tune-up.
I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life.
Thou bearest record of thyself. Thy record is not true.
Though I bear record of myself, yet my record is true. For I know whence I came and whither I go, but ye cannot tell whence I come and whither I go. Ye judge after the flesh. I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true, for I am not alone. But I and the Father that sent me. It is also written in your law that the testimony of two men is true. I am one that bear witness of myself, and the Father that sent me beareth witness of me.
Where is thy Father?
Ye neither know me nor my Father. If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also. I go my way, and ye shall seek me, and shall die in your sins. Whither I go, ye cannot come. Ye are from beneath. I am from above. Ye are of this world. I am not of this world. I said therefore unto you that ye shall die in your sins. For if you believe not that I am he, ye shall die in your sins.
Who art thou?
Even the same that I said unto you from the beginning. I have many things to say and to judge of you, but he that sent me is true. And I speak to the world those things which I have heard of him. When ye have lifted up the Son of Man, then shall ye know that I am he, and that I do nothing of myself. But as my Father hath taught me, do always those things that please him. And if ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
We be Abraham's seed, and were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, ye shall be made free?
I know that ye are Abraham's seed, but ye seek to kill me, because my word hath no place in you. I speak that which I have seen with my father, and ye do that which ye have seen with your father. If ye were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that has told you the truth, which I have heard of God. Why can ye not understand my speech? Even because ye cannot hear my word. Ye are of your father, the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. And because I tell you the truth, ye believe me not. Verily, verily, I say unto you, if a man keep my saying, he shall never see death.
Art thou greater than our father Abraham, which is dead?
Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad.
And hast thou seen Abraham?
Verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am.
We can clearly see, particularly in John 8, that Christ is letting the Jews know that they've been worshiping the devil, and anyone who studies the Canaanite pagan religion and then looks at the roots of Judaism, they can see that the Jews just renamed the Canaanite El and Asherah as a singular Elohim and a council, and that would explain why that particular god was fond of blood sacrifice and genocide and slavery and a whole bunch of other gross stuff. So what does this have to do with simulation theory? Well, the Bible would suggest that maybe the architect is imperfect and there's something maybe a little unusual going on inside the box that Schrodinger left his cat in. Think of the Sphinx in the desert and people digging through the desert through the cat turds. Instead of just enjoying their lives, they're going and looking for more and more and more. Those are the He-gypt all of us. He-gypt all of us. They go out and see that giant obelisk in the sand and they think, oh, He-gypt all of us. I wish I could have an obelisk that big. I want to decode something. I want to find a secret. I want to go out there and dig through the cat box and find a cool turd. So we had a bad spirit. It looks like somebody cracked open the box and got a whiff of something. Something came in or something left? I'm not sure. But the symbolism of the coronavirus, which is named after a crown, and the story of which, the bat and the Wuhan and the pangolin coming out of China, this is all symbolism that perfectly maps onto the mythology of the Batman movie that's out recently. And then we have the QAnon conspiracy theory represented in the Q drops, in the eye drops, and the IQ drops in the Batman movie, which maps onto the Q document in the original question or source and sayings Gospel of Christ, in which, well, it looks like one of his sayings involved child abusers are recommended to commit suicide. So that's a pretty radical saying that seems to contradict other stuff in the Bible. It's possible that maybe Christ comes down here but doesn't forgive everybody. If you're one of those people, you might get a reset and have to play that whole game all over again. I think that's what that means. Reincarnation, of course, is a part of the Jewish and Christian understanding. Jesus even tells the disciples that Elijah had been reincarnated and they didn't know it and didn't recognize him. So he could be being funny and saying he's Elijah, but I think he's referring to John the Baptist. So let's get into a conclusion, and then we'll prep this for the deeper codes in number 9 coming up. So we have tic-tac UAPs mapping onto the bad breath and spirit of the ages. We have the Dick ship space race trying to crack the nut, Nut being the firmament goddess of the Egyptians. And then we have the tic-tac social mediums contagion. So we have people that are younger who are less experienced receiving this radioactive information, and they're responding poorly to it. So instead of saying I'm not artificial intelligence, they're saying I'm non-binary. I'm not ones and zeros. I'm not digital. I'm something beyond that. So that's how that maps on. We've got the Easter egg UAPs, of course, mapping on to other mythologies about birth and procreation, life and death. And we have the Grail runneth over and the bowl judgment symbolisms of the book of Revelation, in which the trumpets are sounding, and that's Trump and Pence. And now we have the bowl judgment and the cup running over and the spirit of the ages cleaning out some bad breath, or possibly some bad breath was used and there was some collateral damage. I'm still not sure about what all of that means, but we are certainly worshiping the wrong icons in the materialist scientific age. But that is one that is coming to an end as the scientific paradigms give way to more open-minded ideas, and we are seeing spirituality on the rise, even though religion is on the decline. And I think that could be part of a transition, and it might be a good sign. So we're in the spirit of the age, and everybody's got a little puzzle piece when they're getting creative. So if you're trying to create a new identity on the internet.
See how there's no windows on the side? And see underneath where there's like a pod thing? What's that, right?
This is Symbols, Patterns, and Gnosis with Jason Bickford. That's me. I produce this channel. For YouTube, I have other creative outlets. This is a non-monetized page, and I am not sponsored, nor do I have any affiliate links from which I benefit from. I am crowdfunded through Patreon. At Patreon, I post essays, exclusive content, lots of downloadable goodies. If you get in there now for as little as $3 a month, even less if you take advantage of the annual discount, you can access previews, art sales, downloadable books, PDFs. You'll see how my mind works. You can get involved in the conversations going on there, meet some interesting and smart people, or you can message me privately. I get back to everybody that reaches out to me there. Again, that's just $3 a month for the lowest tier. You can contribute more if you're in a position to do so. You can also get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, some downloadable goodies, and posters over at gnosticonpress.com, my Teespring store. I also have an Etsy.com channel under the name of the Gnostic Reclamation, and you can search me, Jason Bickford, by name there as well. And I have fine art prints on wood. I'm going to be updating that shortly, and we will be going into printed material this year in the not too distant future. So that's my commercial, so please support me. I'm an independent artist, and I'm non-mainstream. There isn't really any professional way I can work for someone else in media and express the things that I want to express, because I would be forever canceled and forever fired. So support me if you resonate with my content and want to help me continue to grow this channel and improve the quality of this material. So I'll be trying new formats, and in the not too distant future I'll be updating some gear. And that's courtesy of the city of Broomfield and the lawsuit settlement they'll be offering me in the not too distant future. And I'll do an upload video on that, so good things to come. So thanks for supporting the channel, even if it's just hitting the like to help the algorithm spread my video and increase the possibility that this will be recommended to someone else. So thanks for that, and now back to the message.